Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel, What the Beck. Today we're going to learn how to make these adorable tiny snails and slugs, and I just love these little guys, so let's get into it. To make this project you will need 3 colors of yarn. I'm just using scrap yarn. You also need scissors, a 4.5mm crochet hook, a darning needle, and some stitch markers. So to get started, we're just going to make the slug portion of our snail, or just the slug if that's what you're going for. So for row 1, we're going to make a magic ring like so. We're going to put our hook under, grab that, and do a chain, and that basically makes our magic ring. Then we're going to just do 6 single crochets into that magic ring, and once we've done 6, we're going to tighten it up. Now to make sure we don't lose our place, we're going to put a stitch marker in the last stitch of that round, and then we're going to move on to round 2. So for round 2, we're going to do an increase in the first 2 stitches, and I choose to work over my tail when I do this. You can also tie the ends together, but to make an increase, you're basically just going to do 2 single crochets into that first stitch. And since we're doing 2 increases in a row, we're going to do another 2 single crochet into the next stitch. Now we're going to be making the antenna of our slug, so we're going to chain 5. Then we're going to go into the back bump of the second chain from our hook and do a slip stitch, and we're going to continue doing a slip stitch down all 4 of those chains, because remember we skipped the very first one. After that, we have one antenna done. We're going to do an increase in the next stitch, and then we're going to do another antenna. So we're going to chain 5, skip the 5th little chain that we made, and then going into the back bump, we're going to do 1 slip stitch down each of the remaining 4 chains. And after that, you'll see that we have 3 stitches left in our row. We're just going to do an increase into each of those, and again I'm choosing to work over my chain so I don't have to weave it in, and also just makes it a little bit more secure. At the end of this row you'll have 2 antenna and 12 single crochet. And remember to put your stitch marker at the last stitch. For round 3, we're just going to put 1 single crochet into each single crochet around. So you will have 4 single crochet before your first antenna. Then you're just going to want to move that forward a little bit and find the 2 single crochets in between, and we're going to do 1 single crochet into each of those. Then move your other antenna forward, and we're going to continue single crocheting, basically just going around the antenna, ignoring them as if they're not there. Row 4 is the same as row 3, except we don't have to worry about those antennae anymore. We're just going to put 1 single crochet into each of the 12 single crochets that we already have. For row 5, we're going to do 5 single crochets. And then we're going to do a decrease. You can do an invisible decrease like me or just do a regular decrease. And then we're going to do 5 more single crochet to bring us around to our stitch marker for a total of 11 stitches. For row 6 and row 7, we're just going to do 1 single crochet into each stitch around. So both of these rows will have a finishing stitch count of 11 stitches. Row 8 is going to be 5 single crochets, followed by a decrease, and then 4 single crochets to bring us to our stitch marker with a total of 10 stitches. For row 9, we're going to single crochet into each stitch around for a total of 10 stitches. For row 10, we're going to do 4 single crochets, followed by 1 decrease, and then 4 more single crochets to bring us to the end of our row, and we will have 9 total stitches. Row 11 and 12 are going to be just 1 single crochet around in each of the stitches for a total of 9 stitches. And then after row 12, we're going to stuff our little slug piece. You can use polyfill or yarn scraps. Just make sure to really get it in there, put it at the very end of the slug, and fill it up so it's pretty firm. And here I'm just checking my slug for adequate stuffedness. Now for round 13, we're going to do a repeat, and that is going to be 1 single crochet in the next stitch and then 1 decrease. So if you'll watch me here, I'm going to do a single crochet in the very first stitch, and then the next 2 stitches I'll decrease together, and that's the repeat. So we're just going to continue doing 1 single crochet and then 1 decrease over and over until we get to the end of our round, and we'll have 6 stitches. At this point, you can cut your yarn. Make sure you leave yourself enough to weave in. We're going to put our yarn tail into our tapestry needle and do a drawstring closure. Now to do this, you're basically just going to go into each stitch from the inside pointing outward, and I choose to go through both loops here. You can do just the outside loops if you really want to. I go around each of my 6 stitches, and then I can pull it very tight and it closes it up. Then I'm going to weave in my end, and I basically go into one direction and then back through another row and then back one more time to make sure it's really secure. And then you can cut the extra off and save it to stuff your next slug. Now that he's done, he's going to kiss his husband, and then we're going to make a shell for him. Of course, if you have a nudist slug or snail, you can leave it blank. But for row 1 of a shell, we're going to use 2 colors. So we're going to take color A, make a magic ring like we did before, and we're going to do 3 single crochets into the magic ring. We're going to then pull up our loop so it's nice and big and won't come out, and take our next color. We're going to make a slip knot and put that onto our magic ring by putting our hook in, grabbing the slip knot, and pulling it up through the magic ring. We're going to chain 1 and then do 3 single crochets into the same magic ring that is made with color A. Then we're going to pull our loop of color B up and pull the tail of the magic ring to close it. Then we're going to place our stitch marker in the last color, color B, in the 3rd stitch. We're going to also take a stitch marker and put that into the last color of color A as well. I know this is a little bit confusing, but you can do it. I believe in you. If you need to write down on a piece of paper which one is color A, do so. For the next round, we're going to pick up our color A again, and we're going to do an increase into each of these stitches of color B. So we're going to put 2 single crochet into each of those color B stitches until we get to the color B stitch marker. At this point, we're going to pull our yarn up so it doesn't come out and replace our stitch marker. We're going to put our hook into color B and tighten our yarn so that we're back to working with it. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put our hook into the first stitch and do an increase. So 2 single crochets into that same spot. And then we're going to continue doing an increase in each of the color A stitches. And of course, replace your stitch marker. So if you haven't been able to tell, we're basically doing half the round in one color and half the round in the other color, always working into the other color with the current yarn. For row 3, we're also doing a repeat. So we're going to single crochet into the first stitch and increase into the next, and then repeat that sequence of single crochet and then increase with our first color. Once we get to our stitch marker, we're going to remove it and place it into the last stitch of our final increase. Like so. Again, we're going to pull our yarn up so it doesn't come undone. And we're going to pick up our next color and do the same instruction until the end of that round until the stitch marker. So we're just single crocheting in the first one, increasing in the next one, and then repeating that until we get to the stitch marker. At this point we are done with color B, so we are going to put our hook into the next stitch, make a slip stitch, and then finish off. We can cut the yarn pretty short because this is going to be on the inside of our plush, and we can also remove that second stitch marker. For row 4, we're going to pick up with our color A, and we're going to continue by doing 9 half double crochets in a row. And once we get to the slip stitch in color B, we're going to put an increase there. So we're going to put 2 half double crochets in that spot. In the next stitch, which is color A, we're going to put a half double crochet and a single crochet. In the next stitch, we're going to make a slip stitch, and then we're going to finish off, and that is our first side of the shell complete. Now you're going to need to make another one of these, but I'm going to use some magic to duplicate mine. And it's important to note that you'll leave your color A attached on the second shell piece. So the next thing you're going to do is slip stitch 3. So in the next 3 stitches on your second shell piece, you'll just do 1 slip stitch in each of those. Then we're going to put our shells facing together. We're going to make sure that the slip stitch of our last shell piece that is disconnected is going to match up with the next piece on our current working piece of the shell. So we're going to put our hook through the disconnected piece in the slip stitch, and we're then going to put it into the next stitch that is not where our slip stitch is coming out of, like so. We're going to yarn over, pull through, and then complete the slip stitch. And you'll just continue working around the shell, putting your hook through each of the last 2 stitches that are lined up with each other, and doing slip stitches all the way around until you get to the bottom. You'll be doing a total of 15 slip stitches for this round, and that's so that we have an opening at the bottom to turn this inside out and stuff it later. Once you've done your 15 slip stitches, you can fasten off and leave a decently long tail for sewing, so you can attach the shell to your snail. And we're then going to just make our end loose, and we're going to flip this inside out so all our tails go to the inside. And there's our little snail shell with a little swirl. So I'm just going to tuck my ends inside, and again I'm going to take some stuffing or yarn scraps to stuff the shell and put that in there. Again, because this is such a small plushie, you'll probably want to stuff it pretty firmly, so make sure there aren't any gaps. Then we're going to put our tapestry needle on the end of our shell and just line it up on our slug like so, and go ahead and start sewing it on. Now I'm choosing to do I believe it is called an invisible stitch, but you can do whatever you know how to do, whatever you like to do, and just take your time. You can use pins if you need to, but just get that shell on there. Once the shell is fully attached, you're going to want to weave in your end, and I'm choosing to go up into the shell because that is where the rest of color A is, so it'll hide the end easier. So again, just go through in one direction and then back and then the same direction as the first one, trying to stick to where that color is so that it's not very visible. After you've weaved your end, you can cut the extra off, and the little snuzband can go home to his snuzband. They can have a little dance, have a little kiss, and then you've got your own little snail. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to post your makes online, please feel free to tag me, and please subscribe if you want to see more tutorials and other fun crafty videos. Bye!